Sometimes this happens when we look at somebody else and we think, wow, their life is so much better. Well, the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it.
Are you looking for a way to drive growth, sales, communication, and retention in your academy? Kovar Systems 6-month Program Director course is designed to help members of your team thrive in the important role of Program Director. With step-by-step training, we will cover a wide range of topics, including prospect follow-up, overcoming objection, and securing enrollments. Our program will teach your team members to effectively communicate the values and benefits of martial arts, which can be a game changer in securing more enrollments at your academy. Our next 6-month course starts on this date, so don't wait and visit our site www.kovarsystems.com to get your team enrolled in the upcoming course. Again, that's www.kovarsystems.com. Enroll now and get ready to see some real results in your business.
Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy.
Welcome to Satori Lifestyle, Satori Masters Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and I'm actually going solo today. And I want to talk about a very important subject, and that is avoiding burnout. It seems like I'm having conversations all the time with people about this. And as I sit here, if you take a look, if you're seeing me, I'm completely covered with sweat. My hair's out of place. My shirt is drenched. And why? Because I just got done training. I just got out of a jiu-jitsu class, and it was great fun. And anyway, I gave some and I took a lot, but man, it was great fun. And why do I share this with you? Because for me, a big chunk of not getting burned out is keeping your passion strong for martial arts. And I would start by, I'm privileged to be able to still continue to train at a relatively decent level. And I've got a few injuries along the way, but I'm able to kind of still find a way to get in the game. And some people might have a harder time than that, but I would remind you that many of you guys that know me have heard this before. Martial arts prefers teaching second, business third. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, you want to have sustain a long career in the martial arts world. The first thing you do is you do your best to be a martial artist. And what does that mean? It means different things for different people. But to me, it's striving to be a better version of yourself. And of course, martial arts is one vehicle to do that, right? And so for me, that involves training. That involves getting out on the floor. And I think there's so many reasons for that. But I'll tell you what. After a good class, man, there's that. By the way, an hour and 20 minutes ago, right before class, I was thinking of every excuse as to not go, right? But I went anyway. And at the end of class, I always anchored in because that kind of, I remember how good it feels to be done with a great workout. So I would keep your passion for martial arts strong, first and foremost. And like I said, as you age, things will change. And does it mean you always have to, learn different arts? No, man, I have nothing but respect for someone that's training their one art their whole life, as long as they're still training. But what I think is important kind of for starting point with this is Shoshin. Shoshin roughly translates means beginner's mind. And in the theory is in the mind of an expert, is one option. In the mind of a beginner, there's 1,000. So keep it being an open-minded and receptive. Okay, so that would be kind of a really important starting point. Now, I think the other thing about resisting burnout is a couple things. First off, burnout usually happens when you lose sight of your vision, when you're not clear. Now, there's lots of things that go into it, but I know when your why is not clear, man, that makes an incredibly big difference. So for me, I'm going to share with you my professional mission statement. And it goes like this: to globally empower people of all ages to become more confident, healthy, happy, and contributing members to society through high-quality martial arts instruction, which consists of training in self-defense, health, fitness, and life skills. And no, I didn't read that. Yes, I have it memorized, and I believe it wholeheartedly, right? So what that does, that always kind of, whatever I'm doing, I can kind of, is it in line with those? And that kind of makes me really clear as to what my purpose and where my focus should be, right? But the other thing with burnout is that, man, there's so many variables go into it. But the first thing, sometimes this happens when we look at somebody else and we think, wow, their life is so much better. Well, the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it. So the key thing is that anytime we can, we instead of staring at what other people are doing, if we can just double down on what I can do better, what we can do better, then chances are you'll see progress. And a lot of times what brings burnout to us is fear of the future or regret for the past. We're sitting at our desk and it's 2 PM and man, I've been teaching for a long time and my assistant instructor is not here today. And I'm just thinking if only I, coulda, shoulda, woulda. And that stuff, there's no value in that. Or the future is, man, I don't know, if I focus on the future, what if this happens? What if that happens? Man, that takes you out of the present. That takes you out of really being at your best. And I don't know about you, but stepping onto the floor, no matter how you feel at the beginning of class, but putting your spirit in your class. When you walk off the mat after a good class, man, that is a great feeling. And that's when but you have to remember, you have to feel it. Many of you guys might be familiar with the Instructor's Creed. I've recited the Instructor's Creed thousands and thousands of times in my career. And it goes like this: I will teach this class as if it's the most important class I'll ever teach. I am patient and enthusiastic. I lead by example. Actually, let me say it again. I will teach this class because it's the most important class I'll ever teach. I am patient and enthusiastic. I lead by example. I changed it up a few years ago. But the concept with this is that how many times in my career have I all this stuff going on and I think, oh man, oh darn it, I have so much to do. I have to teach class. I forgot. Teaching class is what we do, right? It's the core of our program. And so that's kind of helped me kind of get my head back in, because it's important to understand we're only as good as our last class, right? And every time I step on the floor to teach, I look around, let's say there's 20 people in my class. I imagine there's, at any given time, there's probably 10 to 20% of the students that are losing interest. I look around and I imagine one of these people is losing interest. And what can I do to make sure they come back one more time? And that helps me kind of put my spirit into it. And the second thing, the second sentence is, I'm patient and enthusiastic. I think those are the main two qualities any martial arts instructor, for that matter, any teacher can have, is being patient with their students, right? Because it never helps to be impatient, but also being enthusiastic. And the last one is, I lead by example. And that just refers to really just being the person that your students think you are, to the best of your ability. Not perfect, just striving, okay? And so a couple other things when it comes to burnout, I think, is that if we, many of you guys may have heard this story, but years ago, actually it was at the end of COVID, at the beginning of COVID, I apologize. It was in March of 2020, and I was on my way back from a 3-week seminar tour. I started in Australia, I went from there to New Zealand, and then from there to the UK, and it was March 14th. I was in Birmingham, UK, just finishing up a seminar, and it was a Saturday. I had a couple more days of seminars, but my wife called me and said, hey, they're closing the borders, get home. So I find myself at the airport on Sunday morning, March 15th, waiting for a flight home. And so, man, it was a surreal environment. I've never been in an environment like this where there's literally like, there's a gray ooze of negativity that's filling the airport. And half the gate agents are saying the flights are canceled. The other half are saying they're still on. It was just really stressful. And finally, we found out our flight was going to go. And there's a group of college students that had had their semester abroad visas revoked. And they're bantering back and forth, having a good old time, when all of a sudden one of the girls realizes that she left her phone back at the food court. And she starts to panic. She starts to stress out. And understandably so. She's about to hop on a plane for, another country without her phone, right? So boyfriend says, I'll go look for it. He runs off. Okay, while he's gone, she's trying to be calm. Her friends are trying to calm her down, but you can just tell she's stressed. And they're starting to board the plane. And all of a sudden, guess who comes running back? Her last minute boyfriend, phone in hand. She looks at him and she gives him this big hug. And in that very moment, she was in a complete state of bliss. Now, my question for you was, a half hour earlier, before she lost her phone, was she in a state of bliss because she had her phone, or did she just have her phone? She just had her phone. It took losing it and getting it back for her to appreciate it. Well, we shouldn't lose stuff to be appreciated. We just have to take inventory of it. Why do I share that? And what does that have to do with running a martial arts school? This is a practice that I do virtually every morning when I come to the school. Occasionally I'll miss, but very rarely. And I actually got the idea from my friend Fireborz Jacques, who was taught this by Sensei Benedict Jeter-Kiedis. And that is just really to show appreciation and remember how lucky we are to do what we do, is every day when I show up to the school, I put the key in the door, I walk in the school, and before anything else, I wander through the school and I just try to take it in. And it doesn't matter if you're a part-time instructor in YMCA twice a week, or you have your own building and you're full-time. It doesn't matter. The point is remembering when you show up how lucky you are to be there. So I happen to own the building where our martial arts school is, and it's 13,400 square feet. It's a very large facility. We have 4 large training floors, and it's pretty cool, right? And it's easy to take for granted. Well, I try not to take it for granted. So I'll wander through and I'll go through all 4 training rooms, and I'll try to remember a bunch of memories, a bunch of things that happened in that school. And I just kind of take it in. I think, wow, this is my dojo. And what happens is I sit down at my desk, and whatever challenges are there, they're easier to deal with, because I kind of started with gratitude for how blessed I am to be doing what we're doing.
Ready to elevate your martial arts teaching skills to the next level? Join us for the next Kovar's Instructor Bootcamp. Learn from experienced martial arts trainers through interactive workshops, dynamic demonstrations, and hands-on training. Refine your teaching strategies, enhance your communication skills, and deepen your understanding of how to lead a successful martial arts class. Enrolling you and your team will emphasize personal growth and leadership skills, empowering them to become more confident and capable leaders. This, in turn, boosts your school's reputation, attracts new students, and contributes to long-term success of your academy. Don't miss this chance to take your teaching skills to new heights. Register now and take your martial arts teaching skills to the next level.
The next thing I think is super important is that every one of you guys, very few industries have this as much as we do, but every one of you has gotten tons and tons of notes, thank you notes, emails, cards from students, or maybe how many of you guys have ever gotten the coloring of you in your uniform from one of your students, a picture of you, we've all got that, right? From our 6-year-old that gave us this picture, right? Well, I don't know about you, I have a whole drawer full of thank you notes and letters of appreciation, both from students and parents of students and from adults who's trained with me as kids. Just basically saying, hey, thank you for what you did, your program did for me or for my family. And I read those on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I have a half dozen I call upon whenever I'm feeling a little bit low. I read through this because it really helps me to kind of remember my purpose. It really puts it in perspective. And I think it's important to understand that there are 3 types of motivation. There's desperation, there's inspiration, and there's purpose. Let me explain what I mean by that. First off, I've been in my career plenty of times motivated by desperation. And that is, man, it's the third of the month, rent's due on the 1st, late on the 5th. I got 2 more days. I got to come up with a bunch of money. Man, I'm desperate. Guess what happens? I come up with the money. I find a way, right? But the problem with desperation is it tends to be temporary. When the immediate problem is done, you kind of go back into kind of being mediocre, right? The flip side of desperation is inspiration. And that's when you went to a seminar, went to a class, read a book, or read, who knows, and you're just super pumped and motivated. By the way, I believe inspiration is way better than desperation, but that also is temporary. That also usually kind of, passes. But what sticks around in that is purpose, being clear on what it is that you're doing. That's where those notes come into play. Another thing along the same lines is remembering past successes. So chances are there's so many things that you doubted you can do that you've able to accomplish. And so often we just forget about those. So when we're faced with a challenge, like for example, here's one, and anybody that's been a martial arts professional for any length of time has had this happen. It's Thursday afternoon. Your voice is pretty much fried because you taught 3 nights of classes. You're a little dehydrated. You got a mild headache, and you're not in the best. You're not at your best. And what do you know? Your assistant instructor called in, and you've got 6 classes to teach tonight. And the first thing you think is, oh man, how am I going to get through this day? Well, guess what? You get through it. You find a way. So what's important at the end of the day, when that happens, is go, wow, I did get through that. If I can accomplish that, man, I can accomplish just about anything, right? But the key is not to have to do that on a regular basis. And I want to share a story that really had a lot of input to me. I had a friend of mine who, years ago, I'm going back probably 30 years, opened up this brand new facility in Southern California, and it was state of the art. And just to put in perspective, back in the early and mid 90s, nobody had mats. Most people had, some people had mats, very few did. Most people had carpet. I know for us, we had a 5-inch rebond. That was our matting. There's our pad, and then a carpet over it. And that was pretty high tech, we thought, right? Anyway, so he had just beautiful wall-to-wall mats and hanging bags. It was state-of-the-art school. And he was a charismatic guy, a really good instructor, really good martial arts. What do you get when you have the right person in the right place at the right time? You get success in a lot of it. And this guy just blew up. He had so many students, he couldn't process that things are good. But he had one thing going against him. He was short-sighted when it came to training staff. He didn't spend a lot of time with it. He kind of expected the people to be better without them really being able to put in the time. So because of that, what was happening is he was always churning through staff members. And by the way, he did fine for the first decade. He did fine. But I remember him saying literally, and this is very cliche, but I literally hear him saying, well, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, man. If I want classes done right, I got to be the one to do it. Well, that type of mentality can really come back to bite you later on. And so I kept in touch with him, but less and less over the years. And I'd see him at the Super Show every few years. And every time I saw him, it was a diminished version of himself, right? Just wasn't the same enthusiastic, passionate guy. And finally, a few years back, I was in LA, and I was doing an event, and I was pretty close to his school. And I called him up and I said, hey man, haven't talked to you for a long time. You mind if I drop by? And he said, come on by. And I went by, hadn't been to the school for over 20 years. Same school, same mat, same paint. The difference now is that it was this beaten down, dungy dojo that lost his luster. I asked him how business was, and he was struggling. He was suffering. He was still teaching every class. He was completely burned out. He was thinking about giving us up and getting a day job, and etc. Well, so which brings me to the next point. One of the key things to avoiding burnout is to train your team. And the issue with training your team is a lot of times what people want is they want an instructor that's ready to teach class tomorrow night. And it's really hard to do that in often cases. But guess what? There's someone that you're going to want to teach class in 2 years from now and tomorrow night. And there's a lot you can do right now. So the key thing is to start early training your team and molding your team and planting seeds. So what does that mean exactly? If you see somebody, regardless of the age, that you think could be a good instructor someday, don't wait to talk to them about it. They could be trained with you for 3 weeks, and you could walk up and you say, Christian, you ever thought about teaching martial arts before? And they're probably going to say no. Well, I'll tell you what, you've only been training for a while, so you're not ready for it now, but I think you'd make a good instructor someday. So what I want you to do is just keep coming to class and trying hard, and we'll talk, okay? And the worst thing that happens is that person becomes a better student because of those discussions, okay? And so what a lot of people will do when it comes to their staff, they've got all their eggs in one basket. They've got one person they're grooming, and that person is 16, and I've heard this 100 times. They're going to be a great instructor. They're going to take over the school someday. And guess what happens? A year and a half later, they fall in love and they move to Florida, and you lose your instructor. Now you're starting all over again. So the key is to have a bunch of people that you're training. And initially, when you have helpers out there on the floor, they kind of get in the way at first, right? But you have to kind of give them a job and help them get past that initial stage. And eventually they can be of massive benefit from you. But if you look at the business in the long term, it's like, all right, man, I don't want to be successful for a year. I don't want to be successful for 5 years and 10 years. I want to have a successful career teaching martial arts. Then it's really important that you minimize or avoid burnout. And the other thing that I haven't touched on there's a Japanese term that goes like this, chūyu-de-ari. And chūyu-de-ari, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, means moderation, variety, and balance. And what that means is that I got to make sure that I live a balanced lifestyle, and that every day I have enough time to where I'm not just killing myself off. Now, every now and then, I've had my share of weeks, still do, by the way. Well, I'll work 7 days in a row for 2 weeks. Literally earlier this year, I had like 22 days straight where I had events or classes. Now, by the way, I don't really work because I love what I do, so it's not the same, right? But that I try not to have that happen very often. But the deal is, if you push long enough, you can't help but get burned out. So the key thing on this is to make sure that you build in time off, because really, if you overburden, you can't help but get burned out. So that's where that team comes into play. And I want to talk about one last thing, and I call them the 6 pillars of health, in which dramatically help you resist burnout. First off, one of the mastery mindsets goes like this: I take great care of myself because the world needs me at my best. And I think it's super important to understand that if you want to be good for your team, if you want to be good for your school, if you want to be good for your students or for your family, you got to be at your best, right? And so taking care of yourself should be a priority. I don't know about you, but I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better boss, I'm a better instructor when I'm feeling good about myself. Okay, and a lot of times we kind of, I don't have time to eat right, I don't have time to get a good night's sleep, no, take the time. Moderation, variety, balance, because if you can take great care of yourself, then you're going to do better you're going to minimize burnout. So the 6 pillars of health. And as I go through this, I want you to think about what you're good at and what you can be better at. Number 1 is exercise. What's the best exercise? The one you'll do, right? That's the best exercise, right? But getting some kind of fitness in there, preferably getting some resistance training in as well. Second is nutrition. When I'm talking about nutrition, I'm not talking, why diets work? Almost any diet works because you're eating intentionally. Are you eating intentionally? Are you eating close to how you think you should? Not perfect, but do you have some rules you live by when it comes to nutrition? That's really the key thing. And it starts with hydration, right? Dehydration is linked to irritability, fatigue, and hunger. If we want to minimize that, drink more water. Next is try to eat low on the food chain, right? Common sense, but eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, etc. More things that have less ingredients in them. The next is to eat mindfully. And that is what that basically means is slow your roll, man. If you eat slower, you'll simply consume less, okay? The samurai called it hari hachibu. Hari hachibu roughly translated means 80% full. Not eating until you're stuffed, but eating until you're not hungry. A very important, significant difference. And the last thing, if you're going to treat yourself, fine. Just treat small and not that often. If you like chocolate cake, have chocolate cake. But can you not have it every day in a big piece? Can you have a smaller portion just every now and then? If you do that, man, that's a good formula for nutrition. Next, rest. getting enough sleep, man. If the only way you're getting through the day is with a Red Bull, that's the only way you get through every day, then there's probably something wrong. Now, every now and then you got to do what you got to do. I'm going to take a road trip next week. We're going to drive late into the night. We're going to go to a family reunion, and it's going to be a long day, and I'm probably going to have some caffeine in the afternoon, but it's not something I would normally do. So you try to make sure that you're getting enough rest. Next is stress management. And when I'm talking about stress management, so much of this is just how I view things, right? A lot of stress is self-imposed. And what I mean by that, there's a term called the 2 arrows. And the 2 arrows, the first arrow hits you, that's when something bad happens. Pow, man. You know, let's just say you get in a car accident, you twist your ankle, or one of your employees quits, or you lose a student, or whatever that is. That's the first arrow. And that's unavoidable in most cases. But the second arrow is avoidable, and that's how you deal with that. You know, keep beating yourself up for what happened, or replaying it, or if only, or do you just kind of move forward from there? Okay, so that'll help minimize stress. And here's the other thing. Take some time every day. I've got a water bottle here with about 10 ounces of water. I can hold it like this for a few seconds, I'd be fine. For a couple minutes, I'd be fine. But if I try to hold it like this for 4 hours, I'd be dying. Yeah, that's all I could focus on. Well, that's what we do with our little stresses. But if we just put those little stresses down and pick them up when we need them, we can go on for a really long time. The 5th one is risk avoidance. And what the heck does that mean? In martial arts, that would mean like today. In jiu-jitsu, I make sure I pick who I'm training with, and I train smart, and I quit early. And you can say, oh man, you're wimping out. Well, I've earned the right. After all these years, I'm still the man. I kind of have a good sense of the fact that, you know what, I'm not going to train with that guy, or I'm tired, I'm going to not train now. Because firstly, every injury I've ever had has been when I'm super fatigued, right? So that's a rule that I follow that works well for me. And the final one is recharging. And recharging has to do with finding something that brings you massive joy and doing it on a regular basis. You know, it could be walking in nature, it could be playing a musical instrument, it could be doing artwork, it could be training in martial arts, right? Something that brings you great joy. And if you can do that, what happens is you'll find yourself balanced. And when you live a balanced lifestyle and you remember your purpose, the bottom line is you are way less likely to become burned out. So these tips work for me. Hopefully 1 or 2 of those that we spoke about work for you. And I would tell you, if you're a professional martial arts instructor, the world needs what you have to offer. You really owe it to the world to do the best job you possibly can, which means starting with you. I'm just not talking about working harder. I'm talking about taking time to find your passion, find your purpose if you lost it, and then put your spirit into what you're doing, and then really celebrate those successes. And if you do that, you will continue to have amazing success. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high-quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Hanchi Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.